introduce our friend and fellow Rotarian, Dave Fitzgerald. Dave not only is a giant of Atlanta's ad industry, but he's also quite the model of Rotary's motto of service above self. Dave is the president and CEO and founder of Fitzco, Atlanta Advertising Agency. He's the former president of the Atlanta Ad Club and the former chair of the American Association of Advertising Agencies Atlanta Council. He's also been very involved in community areas such as the keyboard roles with the Cristo Rey High School, St. Joseph Health System, and even leading Atlanta's St. Patrick's Day Parade. Please join me in welcoming Dave Fitzgerald.
Thank you, President Kelly. You know, it's an honor for me to introduce my good friend, Chris Womack. It's an odd task in this room because Chris is known to almost everyone here, but I'll give it a try. You may know Chris as Chairman, President, and CEO of Georgia Power, as former President of External Affairs at Southern Company, as a board member of Invesco, a former legislative aide to Leon Panetta, or as a consumer advocate working with Ralph Nader, or maybe as chairman of the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, or of the Atlanta Sports Council, or chair of the East Lake Foundation, or chair of the Alliance to Save Energy, or a member of the National Board of First Tee. This is the Chris Womack that is known to many of us. But let me tell you about the much younger Chris Womack in his formative years. Chris was raised by a single mom who taught school in the booming metropolis of Greenville, Alabama. Now, if you, like most people, have never heard of Greenville, join the crowd. But let me orient you. It's east of Pineapple. Pineapple, by the way, is two words, Pineapple, Alabama. It's west of Luverne, Alabama. It's north of Red Level, Alabama, and south of Lettahatchee. So do you have it? You got a picture of that? Yeah. Of course you don't, because it's in the middle of nowhere. But it's a place with no opportunity and certainly no concept of upward mobility, especially for a young black kid growing up in the 60s in that part of the world. A time and a place of waiting rooms and lunch counters and schools and drinking fountains that were for white people only. He left Greenville to attend Western Michigan University, where he received his bachelor's degree in political science. Maybe political silence would have been a better, I'll just say. He went on to earn a master's degree from American University and is currently pursuing his doctorate in political science at Clark Atlanta. Along the way, he completed the Stanford executive program. Not bad for a little kid from Greenville. When he was 8 years old, his mother drove him to Birmingham. It was the first time he saw buildings over 2 stories, and he was in absolute awe of them. He said to his mom that clearly really important people are doing really important things in these buildings, and he'd certainly never in his lifetime be a part of it. Well, he's now sitting in the corner office of a 24-story office building, running a $47 billion company with over 8,000 employees. Not a bad deal for a little kid from Greenville. It's a remarkable story. Let's hear more. Please welcome my good friend, the Chairman, President, CEO of Georgia Power, Chris Womack.
Dave, thank you for that introduction. You're supposed to ask the first question, right? How are we going to do this?
We're going to do a conversation about the company and about Chris.
You take this one.
He always tells me what to do, and it's worked pretty well. we're going to have a conversation with Chris about the company and his life, and we've decided to do it, with me playing kind of the Tucker Carlson to his Bernie Sanders. We'll see how this works out. That's what you agree, right? So first about the company, you've been there for 4 months, what are your top priorities now that you're CEO?
First of all, let me say thanks, and this is weird sitting here because I know a lot of you, some of my closest and dear friends, the Lee Birdsongs of the world, the Theron Johnsons, people that I love dearly, Keith Masons, who we've all grown up together a lot. So it's an honor and a little threatening to be here to kind of expose myself in this way. Top priorities at the company is, first of all, it's you guys as customers of Georgia Power. Many of you affectionately refer to us as the power company. And so, what does the power company do? And the power company keeps your lights on, is there when you need us to be, but we also, and is that me? No, but we commit to always being there, and so making a lot of investments in the company today. We've got about $7.5 billion investment that we're looking at over the next few years to make sure reliability is what you need. We're going to work with you on cutting down some of your trees, or at least trimming some of your trees. We're going to put some of your lines underground. We're going to make the system a lot more reliable than it is today, and make sure it's even more resilient. So the first priority is to make sure that each of you are getting the kind of reliable service that you expect from us at a price going forward. Let me say one other thing. 10 years ago today, if you asked me, well, Chris, how is the power company supplying the power? Where's it coming from? What's the fuel source? I would have told you 7% of the power today was coming from coal. That was coming out of power plants. Our large, big central station generation that was coming from power plants that were making it with coal. Today, probably less than 20% is coming from coal. We replaced that with a lot of natural gas. We got some 2,000 megawatts of solar capacity on the ground today. We just announced a big 85 megawatt battery storage facility that we're putting in place. So everything is looking a lot different, and we're taking full advantage of technology as we kind of make our generation a lot cleaner, a lot more reliable, but also making sure that we pay attention to the cost of the product going forward. So that's kind of things that I'm focused on. I think you may ask me about Plant Vogtle as well going forward, but yeah, that's kind of a lot of things we're focused on.
A great lead in to the second question. Yeah. The first nuclear power plant in 30 years in America, Plant Vogtle, much in the news, including this weekend. Can you give us your sense of what's happening and when we're going to be online?
We'll be online next year with the first unit. Probably the second half of next year, we'll get it online. This has been a lot harder than we thought it would be. When we made this decision with the Public Service Commission in 2009, we knew it was the right thing then. We had just come through Hurricane Katrina. Natural gas prices were volatile, and so we thought, to stabilize and have a backbone in our system, we thought nuclear power would in fact be the way to go, and that has not changed. Once again, with volatility in natural gas business, but also as we move toward more cleaner forms of energy, as you look at more renewables, there's got to be some backbone that's there when the sun doesn't shine, when the wind doesn't blow. We got to make sure there's a carbon-free source of energy available. And we think nuclear power is, in fact, the way to go. It's hard. This is hard stuff. We never saw a tsunami coming in Japan as we started this project. We never saw the contractor going bankrupt through this project. And we never saw COVID. And as many of you are facing labor shortages and labor challenges, what we've experienced trying to find electricians, other trades, has been a real challenge for us. Not making excuses. We got to get it done. We're going to get it done, and we're going to get it done right, because we think this will be good for you as our customers, would be good for this whole energy mix across this state, but also good for the energy mix across this country. So I'm still very bullish on it. We're going to get it done, and we're going to get it done right.
So you guys made a commitment to be net zero by 2050, which is something I've been working with the company for a long time. 20 years ago would be unthinkable. Can you tell us what's the impetus behind this decision, and maybe give us the backstory?
It's the whole conversation about climate change and how do you view the environment. And so yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, some 10 years ago, I mean, we were a dominant company that was, I mean, that coal was a dominant force, a fuel source that we had to make energy. We recognize the environmental concerns, and so it's okay. How do you make this transition, and how do you do this in the most cost-effective manner? And so you've seen us retire some 6,000 megawatts of coal plants over the past 6 to 7 years. I mean, so big base load central station generation facilities have in fact be retired. A big part of that is because I never thought we'd see solar be as cost competitive as it has been, as it is today. So we've been able to make that transition. And so we made a decision in 2017 to go net zero by 2050. We're half of the way there already with some things that we've done, and we see the path to get there. Yeah, there's between converting coal plants, putting carbon capture on natural gas facilities, more renewables, more battery storage, some capture on natural gas facilities. We're going to get there, and there's going to be another, I think, incredible technology advancement that will occur between now and then. But it is, in fact, doable, and we're going to be a part of that solution as we go forward, as we meet your needs going forward. So very exciting.
Great. So Michael Lomax was on the stage last week. He's Michael's the president of the United Nations, the UNCF, United Negro College Fund. And he mentioned that the difference between Atlanta and Birmingham during the movement was Birmingham burned and Atlanta didn't. And he gave a lot of the credit to the Atlanta business community, not for noble causes, mostly economic, but at the end of the day, it was good for everyone that the Atlanta business community was involved in the movement. And you've often talked about the influence of business in community, and the company has always been a citizen where we serve. And I know you're a big believer in this. You walk the talk. But can you expound? As a shareholder and a ratepayer, why should I care?
Well, I think we all must care. And let me say it this way. And I always have to be a little careful how I say some things because people may disagree, but I'll say it anyway. I got a message from a friend of mine the other day that someone had saw a post that I had put on LinkedIn where I was reading to some school kids. And the comment was, Womack needs to be worried about keeping the power on. And I said, I was dismissive of that because I think I got to do both. I can't just focus on, and I got a team of folks, Mike Anderson and a lot of other my friends in this company, we're worried about keeping the power on. But I think I also have to read books to school kids because I think in this role today, I think I got to be the CEO, but I also got to be an activist on a lot of different issues. I got to lead around them. And I also say there are certain things that we must look to government to do, but there are a lot of issues today that we're facing that are inherently complex, that are very difficult, that are large and changing and shifting every day, that we can't leave those things simply to government. We in the business community must participate, must be involved, must provide the kind of leadership that we know how to do. Yeah, it's got to be done in collaboration and in partnership, but I think there are some also things that we in the business community have to provide the leadership and make sure that we're driving toward, I think, very positive solutions. I can go through a bunch of different things, but that's kind of my view of the role that I see that I must take and what I challenge a lot of other business leaders to take around a lot of different issues.
So your company's made an amazing $225 million philanthropic commitment to communities you serve. To the not-for-profit folks in here, first of all, can you tell us how to tap into that? And second of all, what was the backstory that went into that decision?
A couple of things. If you go back to, say 2018-19, economy's doing very well. Most of our stock portfolios were still growing, but you saw the wealth gap in this country also growing. Haves were having more, and the have-nots were also having less. And so we were sitting around a management table to say, okay, once again, what is our role? Is there something we can do about that? How do we help in that? And so I had also attended a gathering of some Silicon Valley leaders, and they were talking about the lack of diversity in Silicon Valley, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Google, but there was an incredible lack of diversity in those companies. And so talking with a couple board members, having conversations with Michael and some others, we decided to make the first initial commitment to historically black colleges and universities of $50 million. And that was the view that encouraging those universities to make investments in curriculums, focus on data analytics, focus on coding, focus on the things that the Silicon Valley firms were looking for, that as these students graduated, they got jobs in those companies. That's a real immediate way to help change some lives and really make some lives better and really focus on an area that hadn't been focused on to help close those wealth gaps. So that was the initial focus there. Then as we got into kind of this whole post-George Floyd era, and a lot of companies, and a lot of us had to reevaluate kind of what we were doing. And my thing always has been, if we're going to do something, we got to be very sincere about it and not just do a PR campaign. I mean, I love advertising agencies, but I think
You're the one person in America that does.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I love the creativity. And if you look at post-George Floyd, if you look at a lot of, I mean, there was some incredible, creative, passionate ads that came on after that time, talking about what people were espousing to do, but not a lot about what people were, in fact, doing in terms of companies. And so I felt, okay, what serious commitment must we make to do certain things? And so I always rely on a lot of experience that I have. I mean, I take Eastlake, for example, and many of you are very, very, very familiar with Eastlake. But how do we replicate Eastlake in a lot of other communities across this community of Atlanta? But how do I also replicate Eastlake in Birmingham, Alabama, in Monroeville, Alabama, in Pascagoula, Mississippi, in a lot of other places where we do business? And so if you look at a lot of the commitments that we have made, that is the model we're looking at. I mean, I sat around with Ann Curry and David Edson, and I talked to Ann, and she walks away with all the budget that I thought I had and desire to do even more, because it's an incredible commitment to how do we really, really make a difference. And so I look at Eastlake going from the highest crime rate zip code in the country, the lowest graduation rate in this state. When you see the kind of results that have happened there, you say, how do we take that? How do we do that in other places? And so that's what we try to do, because I don't have enough money to do it myself. We don't. But if I take my dollar, I lever that up 10 times, I bring government in, I bring others in, that's how we make a difference, and that's how we get stuff done. And that's what's behind all the commitments that we have made around a program inside of our company that we call Moving to Equity. I mean, it's about what we do internal, in terms of our talent, in terms of our work environment, in terms of our culture, but also focused on what do we do externally in terms of supporting disadvantaged and distressed communities, both urban as well as rural. I mean, and so how do we do that? And that's kind of the impetus around a lot of work that we're doing inside the company.
Well, thanks. It's a great segue to my next question. Whenever I ask, he's my mentor in terms of racial equity and social justice, whenever I ask him a very naive question, which is often, he says, Dave, you've been white for a very long time. I want you to listen to me. But as you just alluded to, the company's been you personally and the company have been very devoted to racial equity. Can you talk about you talked a little bit about your company, but how are you engaging your workforce and your communities in what you're doing?
And just like I do with you, just like I do with any of you who knows me, we deal with it very directly. I mean, I do get the historical fascination that this country has with the topic of race. The problem is that we've also been very uncomfortable having very difficult and uncomfortable conversations, so we try to shy away from it. So the foundation of the focus inside of our company is, first of all, we're going to talk, and we're going to listen, and we're reflecting. And that is the basis for which all the work that we're doing is based around us talking, let's listening, reflecting, and having a better understanding of each other. Because I don't think we create the opportunity to, in fact, do that. And the second, I think, significant pillar about all the work that we're doing is that it's not episodic. I will submit to you today that if you talk to anybody inside of our company, you will find out that the intensity and the energy around this conversation is greater today than it was on May 26th of last year, okay? Because there are a lot of institutions, like I said, that jumped on the bandwagon, that felt bad, and went through some reflection and did a lot of things, but it was not sustainable. They didn't continue it. And the other thing that, and no offense, the other thing that I talk a lot about also inside the company is that white people can't be silent. It's not just a conversation for the black folks inside the company, but I have to make sure, and that's a part of the process, is to make sure that also inside the company, the white folks are also participated in this process. It ain't just something for black folks, for Asian, for Hispanics, for Latinx, for different groups inside the company. And so we're having these conversations. I do this program inside the company called Lunch Table. Lunch Table is just what you think a lunch table is, where you sit around a lunch table, you just have all kind of different conversations, different topics. You get mustard on your lips, ketchup on your tie, but that's what happened at lunch tables. So we replicate those conversations inside the companies with all kinds of groups of people. I mean, I've had it with a group of our gay employees. And when you sit around, and we videotape this and we send it throughout the company. And so when you have these kind of conversations and people share their true feelings about feeling left out, about not feeling involved, but we have these conversations. And so inside of our company, when I had this conversation with a group of our gay employees, and they talked about their decision to come out, it moved me literally to tears, because you see the courage that they brought forward in the decision they made, and how they said, okay, and the reaction to how they were received by their coworkers after they made those kind of decisions. That is the rawness, that is the sincerity, that is the energy that we're putting behind this work inside of our company. And that's the kind of challenge I submit that I think we all must do. And if we're going to get past, we'll never get past race. And so let's be honest about that. Okay, we will never get past it. But it's getting to a point where we're more comfortable with it and we're more honest with it as we go forward, as we run our business, as we run all of our organizations, run all of our agencies, and not look for the government to pass some law to tell us how we're going to behave and how we're going to deal with race. Government can't do that. Government can't do it. This is something that can't be legislated. This is stuff we got to deal with in our hearts and our minds.
A political projection. You may remember 16 or so years ago, you introduced me to a freshman senator from Illinois whose name no one could pronounce, Barack Hussein Obama. You said, this guy's going somewhere. And that worked pretty well for him. But actually, Joe Manchin sent this question in. Said, we've all read a lot about Biden's clean energy program. It's got good things and bad things for utility companies, incentives and disincentives. Where is it? What's going to be the impact of where you think it's going to come out for the company and for us?
I mean, I think they will work something out, I think. But once again, I mean, the politics are so divisive and so sour, I'm never sure. Senator Manchin has an idea that to incentivize us and our company to move toward more cleaner sources, and so there would be a fund available to help us mitigate some of the cost impacts of making a speedy transition to a more cleaner, renewable environment. And so I'm not sure that's going to happen. I guess Manchin and Chuck Schumer were with President Biden this weekend, so we'll see how that turns out. Yeah, I mean, but conceptually, it does make sense to help encourage industries move toward this cleaner transition to mitigate the impact on customers. I'm not sure that that's going to fly, but if it does, we'll we'll try to figure out a way to work with it.
Last question about the company before we move into Chris Womack. We all take electricity for granted, but the security of the power grid is a concern. You know, how secure is it here in Georgia, and what are you doing to make sure it stays so?
Very secure. I mean, yeah, we get, you know, a couple of million hacks during the course of a given day by somebody, whether it's from Russia or from China or somewhere, trying to break in, trying to take control of the power grid. We've got an incredible information technology group that are all the security clearances, and so they understand this stuff very well. I mean, our grid has been hardened. The systems kind of operate automatically, and so I think we're in pretty good shape. But it's something that we just never take for granted because we cannot let that happen. We understand the importance of the service we provide, and so we're always trying to find additional ways to make sure we harden our infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Great. Now about Chris, you know, I've been up to your office. I walked past that line of pictures of previous presidents, chairmen, and CEOs of the Georgia Power Company, and you know, none of them look like you. I don't know whether it's the eyes or the what, but would you opine on being the first African-American CEO of Georgia Power, how it's impacted you? It must come with its own set of pride and privilege, but also challenges.
And Dave, I'll be honest with you, and I didn't know you were going to ask me that one because it's one that I duck and dodge a lot. I mean, yeah, I'm the 15th president, CEO of Georgia Power Company, and we were formed in 1902 as a Georgia Power, but also as a Georgia Railway Company, as we were operating the streetcars here in the city of Atlanta. But I view myself as the 15th, kind of in succession of many others. Do I reflect on the significance of me being the first African American in this role? I do and I don't. I mean, because maybe I fall into this false sense of security, or maybe in a false sense of arrogance to say I've been here 30 plus years. I mean, I've been in 6 different organizations throughout the business. I know everybody in the company. I know how the place operates. I've demonstrated I can get things done. So I say, okay, that was the kind of basis for me assuming this role. I do so also appreciate and recognize the fact that it is a signal to others and a signal to many, because as you talked about my upbringings in South Alabama, no, I never saw an African American doing anything like this. I saw African Americans being preachers and teachers, and that's what my mother wanted me to be. And I did student teaching for about 2 weeks and realized I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. So I recognize more from the signal that it sends to others in terms of what capabilities they have. And so it also says to me, because Dave talked about the story of passing through Birmingham and looking at buildings that were taller than 2 stories, and yeah, there was this incredible inquisition and curiosity about what was happening in there. And so with some work he was doing at Crystal Ray, and we participated in that program, is one of the things I got excited about. When the students from Crystal Ray come to our building, that's what I remember in terms of that curiosity. What is happening inside that big, tall building? Affording them the opportunity to see what happens in there totally dispels this myth and the intimidation that occurs. And so, saying all that to say, it's an honor to serve in this capacity. It's an honor to be the CEO of the power company. Yeah, I know it matters to a lot of people, including my mother, that I'm in this role. And I know hopefully it sends a signal to a lot of other kids, no matter what color they are, no matter what challenges they may have, to say, you know, I can do some things, I can do something that I've never thought I would have the opportunity to do.
Great. Speaking of Crystal Ray, thanks for the opening. The kids, a lot of kids, we have to teach them how to tie a tie and shake a hand. But the other thing we need to do is we have to teach them how to use an elevator, which is amazing. So, Chris, you've been in almost every part of the company since you started. HR, PR, economic development, generation, public policy. I know you liked them all, but aside from being king, what are the other favorite parts of?
No, I mean, if you look at all the jobs I've had in this company, running power plants was probably most enjoyable. I mean, because every day we see the results. I mean, we see megawatts being put on the system. Moving coal around, just seeing the work that we do, all the big mechanical equipment that makes power is always exciting. But then you got a community of people that love their jobs, love the work they do. The family nature of that camaraderie that happens is always fascinating. And then the other thing is, a lot of the employees at the power plants, man, they'll go hunting or fishing on the weekend, and whatever they kill or catch, they bring into the plant that Monday or Tuesday, and they'd either cook it or fry it or whatever. And so I try to be there when they call it a mess of brim, if y'all understand that language. But they bring that brim in and fry it up, and we just have a good old meal. So I love that environment.
Right. So, Chris, you got a scary diagnosis a few years ago, and I wonder whether you feel comfortable talking about it and the extent to which it had some direction and perspective on you in life and business.
I didn't know you were going there. My daughter got married in October 2011. And April 2011, I was diagnosed with liver cancer. And when I got the diagnosis, I went home, and the first thing I did was Google it in terms of what I had. And it said I had less than 6 months left to live. And so I laid on the bed, cried like a baby, and because I didn't think I was going to be able to walk my daughter down the aisle. And so after a few other episodes that some people didn't think I would survive, I'm still here. And so for me, I've gotten a second and third lease on life. So every day is very, very, my glass is always half full, and my glass overflows every day because I'm so very thankful to be here, and I fully understand and appreciate the value of life, but also understand kind of my role and what I got to do while I'm here, and to try to make a difference, to try to help somebody, to do the good things the best that I can every day that I'm here. So, no, it's moving and impact me in a very significant way. But I've been blessed with incredible friends who were with me through those periods in my life, and here I am today, still standing.
And we've all noticed the movement. So you're the CEO of one of the largest companies in Georgia and in America. You have a bachelor's degree and a master's, and now studying for your doctorate. What's your drive and passion about education? Is that from your mother, or?
Yeah, it's from my mother, but also just being nuts. I get bored very easily, and so a couple of years ago, I found myself. I went about 3 or 4 days. I just felt like I didn't have anything to do. I had stuff to do, but it really didn't feel meaningful. And I always felt that. I always enjoyed learning. I always enjoyed reading, and I felt like I got my undergraduate degree for my family, for my community. I got my graduate degree for work, and I feel like I'm getting this one for me. So this is something that I wanted to do. But it's been having the opportunity to go to an historically black college has also been incredibly moving, motivating, and exciting. And so there are a lot of things that have come from it. And also, as you get to doctoral programs, there's this real focus on the theory and going deeper into everything that you study and understanding really why something happens, and then researching it, studying it, and then confirming it or denying it. So it's just a more intense learning that I've experienced before, and getting beyond the practical 144 character word letter that we live in today, this whole short, quick fix world we live in today. Trying to understand complex matters in a deeper way has been really exciting to me, and I really, really enjoy it.
Right. So what keeps you up at night?
Making sure all the employees at the company are safe. That's the first thing I worry about, and then probably my kids. But keeping the company, keeping the employees of our company, because it's a very, very tough, dangerous business, and so making sure they're safe is kind of my number one priority.
Right. And one last question before we turn it over. How's the job impacted your handicap?
It's gotten a lot worse. It's going the wrong direction.
Thank you, Chris.
Great.
It's been great.
Yeah, thank you. We have time for a few questions, a few moments to ask. Anyone have a question? Yes, Martha.
Chris, so refreshed to hear your outlook on leadership, and we're all excited to see where you're going to take the company. I want to bring you back to the subject of solar power and ask, from my layman's perspective, I look at an increasing demand for power as we get out of the business of using fossil fuels and see kind of no end in sight for the demand for clean energy. And I wonder why you have capped the consumer's role in making the capital investment. I think there are 5,000 slots for people to put solar power in their buildings before, and you're out of slots. I mean, why wouldn't you want to corral as much consumer capital as you possibly could to help with that journey?
Yeah, and we will. I mean, I think we did that initially because not showing what the market was going to demand, what the market was going to ask for, and not to put so much out there that we have to spread that across the entire customer base. So yeah, with the demand that we're seeing, you'll see some adjustments in that cap. And right now, we've got a couple thousand megawatts of solar on the grid. We're moving towards 6,000 megawatts over the next 2 years. So yeah, you'll continue to see the increase in solar energy and capacity in the state going forward. And yeah, you'll see some adjustments in those caps. But once again, we're trying to make sure that all those costs of solar and that some people want, everybody doesn't want, but we don't have to spread it in ways that doesn't put burdens on folks who that's not what they want to do. I'll say that. A lot of people would like to invest. Yes, and we'll make that available. We'll make that opportunity available to those that want to. So that's forthcoming. Ann Curry, I see.
Yep, there's Ann.
My whole career, we've relied on Georgia Power for community leadership, and I am very grateful for that. Thank you. But in the past, it might have been a little more mainstream investments that we came to Georgia Power to talk about their leadership. And it feels to me, Chris, that the kinds of things you are doing now, your investments in community development, in HBCUs, the Propel Center, Ed Farm, things like that, are a little more cutting edge than what we might have done 10, 15 years ago. And I'm wondering if that was a difficult sale internally and with your board, and whether you have advice for the rest of us in the room who may want to follow that example.
And I would tell you, it has not been. I mean, Tom Fanning, chairman of CEO, and others, they get it. I mean, we tell the story, we understand where we are in this community and in this country. And we understand the opportunity that we have to be a citizen wherever we serve, and it may look differently, but we have to do some things a little different than we've done it in the past. Yeah, a lot of things that we've done, long-term, long-standing organizations in this town will continue to be there. At the same time, I think we've got to look to do things in some different ways than we've done them in the past, and that's kind of reflective of those kind of investments and initiatives that we're advancing going forward, and we'll continue to do that.
Back at Robert.
Thanks for your investments. Robert Franklin, Investments. Chris, why a PhD in political science, and what are you reading now that you wish the whole world would read?
I'm reading a bunch of Frantz Fanon. And from a political theorist, and this is a guy from Martinique, but spent time in Algeria looking at the Algerian revolution, and so it's kind of but it goes real deep in the topic of race and colonialism. So it gives race a whole different perspective. I've always loved politics, and so I dealt with it from the practical side, but I've always been intrigued about looking at it in a deeper level. So that's kind of that motivation for studying political science at this level. So you're familiar with Frantz Fanon? Yep.
Wonderful. Chris and Dave, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation, and we really appreciate your leadership in this community on so many fronts. Thank you.